Hello, today in this video we are going to see how we can create a REST API based AI agents using Embabel Framework. So in our last tutorial, we covered the basics of Embabel Framework. We understood the core concepts, the annotations that we can use to create our agent, and also we understood the basics of goal oriented action planning and how Embabel makes use of that. And then finally we created a shell based AI agent using which we were able to summarize our meeting transcripts. While the shell based AI agent was good for development and POC point of view, sometimes we need to expose our agent capabilities via the REST APIs. So this is what we are going to see in our today's tutorial. Before jumping into the coding part, let's quickly understand the project structure. Our application is going to be a Spring Boot based application within which we will make use of Embabel framework to create the REST API based AI agents. So the name of our application will be Embabel Meeting Summarizer Agent, within which we will have our agent which will summarize the meeting transcript. Then we will be having one configuration file within which we will configure the Google Gemini model. Then we are going to have one controller which will accept the user request containing the meeting transcript and finally return the response. And then we are going to have the set of DTOs that will be used throughout the project for accepting the request as well as for sending back the response. Then we have the Spring Boot main class. Then we have the application.yml containing basic configuration. And then we have the pom.xml containing the required dependencies and other project configuration. Let's jump into the IntelliJ. So here you will see the project structure is exactly similar what we have seen just now. Let's start with the pom.xml. Since we are creating a Spring Boot based application, we are making use of Spring Boot version 3.5.7, which is the latest version. And then we are making use of Java version 21. And for Embabel, we are making use of version 0.2.0 snapshot. As of recording this video, the stable version that is available is 0.1.4. Coming to the dependencies section, first we have added the Spring Boot starter web using which we will create our REST APIs. Then we have added the Embabel agent starter which will bring all the required dependencies for working with the Embabel framework. Behind the scenes, it will also bring the Spring AI dependency. And then we have added the Spring Boot starter actuator for the metrics and other endpoints. And then we have added the repositories. So these repositories are related to Embabel. So in order to bring the required dependencies from Embabel repositories, we have added the Embabel release repository URL as well as the Embabel snapshots repository URL. Coming back to the Embabel agent starter, as I mentioned earlier, behind the scenes it will also bring the Spring AI related dependencies. So if we go to dependency analyzer and type Spring AI, here you will see it is bringing the Spring AI related dependencies. So if we see the chat client, here you will see it is coming from Embabel agent starter. Now coming to the application YML, here you will see we have added the basic configuration like the name of our application. Then we have configured the default LLM. In our case, it is going to be the Google Gemini 2.0 Flash Experimental. Then we have enabled the logging for Spring AI. And then we have enabled the actuator endpoints. We have enabled all actuator endpoints in our case. Now coming to the Spring Boot main class, here you will see we have added one new dependency which is @enable agents, which will enable this Embabel framework capabilities. Also behind the scene, what it does is it looks for the agents that we have defined within our application and then it registered them. And here we have added one configuration related to logging. So whatever logging will be done by Embabel framework, it will be based on the Star War theme. Now coming to the next class, which is configure Google Gemini model. This is the configuration class that we have created in order to work with the free models that are offered by Google. Now Google provides certain set of APIs that are compatible with the OpenAI standards. So here you will see we are configuring the same. First we have configured the domain of the Google, then we have specified the chat completion endpoint, Then we have specified the Google Gemini API key, which is coming from the environment variable. Then we have specified the observation registry, which is provided by the Spring Boot actuator dependency that we have added. Now in order to work with the Google Gemini model, here we are creating the bean of type LLM, within which we have specified the model name. In this case it is Gemini 2.0 Flash Experimental. Then we have specified the pricing structure. Since we are working with the free models, we have configured it as 0 for the input token and 0 for the output token. Then we have configured the name of the provider, and finally we have configured the model cutoff date, which in our case we have set it to 1st January 2025. Now coming to our agent class, which is meeting summarizer agent. What this agent does is it accepts the meeting transcript submitted by the user. Using that, it generates the key points that were discussed during the meeting and also the list of action items. So in order to create the agent, we are making use of @agent annotation, within which we have given the name as meeting summarizer agent, and then we have provided certain metadata related to our agent. Now the goal here that we are trying to achieve is generating the meeting summary, which will have list of action items and the key points that were discussed during the meeting. So here we have specified our goal using @achieves goal annotation, within which we have given the description, and the output that is produced by this method is the meeting summary, which will have the list of key points and the list of action items. Now in order to generate this output, we need the objects of key points and the action items. So these objects are something that are produced by the different actions that we have specified in this class. First action is finding the key points. Another action is finding the action item. So let's start with the find key points action. Here you will see as an input we are receiving the meeting summary request, which is nothing but it will contain the meeting transcript in the form of string. Then we will use this meeting transcript and work with the LLM, which will give us the key points that were discussed during the meeting. So if you see the key points class, it contains the list of key points. Now in order to work with LLM, we have the operation context, which is provided by Embabel. Using the operation context, we are calling the AI, and then we are specifying the model with which we want to work. In our case it is the default LLM, which will be Google Gemini 2.0 Flash Experimental. And then we are requesting the Embabel to generate the output in the form of key points class, which is nothing but we are trying to generate the structure output. So inside this method we have specified the prompt saying read the following transcript and generate the key points, and the output should be in this format, which is the key points dot class, and then finally we are returning it. So the first action will be completed. Now coming to the next method, which is the find action item, the core logic will remain the same. As an input, we are receiving the meeting summary request containing the meeting transcript. Then we are making use of operation context to work with the LLM model. And then we are trying to produce the structured output in the form of action items. Action items contain the list of action items. And here we have provided the prompt for the LLM saying read the following meeting transcript and extract all action items. So once these two actions are completed, key points and the action items, flow will come to this class. As an input, we will receive the key points and the action items, and then we will finally generate the meeting summary. So here you will see we are creating the meeting summary object containing the key points and the action items. So this is how our agent will work. Whenever we will receive the request, it will check what inputs are needed. First it will complete those actions, and finally it will try to achieve our goal. Now coming to our controller class, which is the meeting summarizer controller. Here you will see we have specified the base path as API v1 meeting, and then we have created one post type of endpoint which will summarize the meeting transcript submitted by the user. So as an input, we are receiving the meeting transcript from the user, which will be mapped to this class summary request, which we have already seen. And the output that we want to produce is the meeting summary. This is also we have seen, it will contain the list of key points and the action item. Now whenever we will receive the input request from the user, we need to pass that request to the agent that we have created. that is where the agent platform and agent invocation comes into the picture. So you can think of agent platform as the central coordinator which will be responsible for managing the lifecycle of all agents that we have inside our application. Also, it provides the runtime for running the agents. Now once we have the agent platform, we will make use of agent invocation to programmatically invoke the agent that we have defined. So here you will see we are making use of agent invocation builder pattern, within which we have specified the agent platform, and then we are specifying what kind of output we need. In our case, we need the meeting summary as the output, and we have specified the same inside the build method. Now here we have configured certain optional things, like let's say if we have to see the response data produced by LLM, here we can configure that saying show LLM response as true. Similarly, if we have to see the planning that was performed by the R agent, we can specify using show planning as true. Now we have created the meeting summary agent invocation. Now we have to invoke that agent. This is where the invoke method comes into the picture, within which we will pass the request that we have received from the user, and the output will be the meeting summary which we will ultimately return back to the user. Now how Embabel decide which agent to call, this is where this particular thing comes into the picture. Since we have specified we need the output in the meeting summary form, so what Embabel does, it will check which agent can produce the meeting summary as the output. In our case, since we have defined only one agent which will produce the meeting summary, so Embabel will automatically forward this request to the meeting summarizer agent. So meeting summarizer agent process this request and finally produce the meeting summary as the output, which we will return back to the user. Let's quickly see this in action. I'll start my application. So here you will see, since we have enabled the Star Wars themes, the logging statements are as per the Star Wars. So I'll clear the logs. Now here you will see we are sending the request to the API v1 meeting summarize endpoint, and then we have provided the meeting transcript as the input, wherein the team is discussing the status of their current work and the open items. So when we will submit this request, the request will go to the agent that we have created. That agent will produce the list of key points and the action item, which we will finally receive here as an output. So here you will see we have received the list of key points and then list of action items. And if we go back to our logs, the core logic will remain the same. The Embabel will make use of goal oriented action planning to finalize what inputs are needed and what output needs to be produced. So here you will see when the process was started, as an input we were only having the summary request, due to which it is mentioned as true, rest of the things are still false. And then Embabel formulated the plan that in order to produce the output as create summary, this is how the sequence is going to be. First it will execute the key points, then it will execute the action items, then it will create the summary. So here you will see initially we only have the summary request, due to which it is mentioned it as true, rest of the things are false. And then as soon as the methods were executed, first the key points was executed, so it produced the key points object as output, due to which it is mentioned as true. Find key points method was executed, that's why it is also specified it as true. Then it updated the plan that next it needs to execute the find action items, and finally it will execute the create summary. So here you will see next the action item method was executed, due to which it is mentioned as true. It produced the output action item, that is why the action item is also mentioned it as true. Now the only thing that is needed is executing the create summary. So finally when the create summary was executed, it is mentioned it as true, and it produced the meeting summary as output, that is why it is also mentioned it as true. Finally we receive the output that we have seen. Now since we enable the optional parameter in the controller class, here you will see certain additional information. Here you will see the output produced by the LLM. Now let's see one additional scenario. Earlier we mentioned that we need the output in the form of meeting summary, due to which Embabel selected our meeting summary agent. What if we change this to something else? Let's say we are changing this to string.class, and we will change it at all places. Now, when we will receive the request from the user, Embabel will try to search for the agent which will produce the string type of output. In our case, we don't have any such agent. We only have one agent which produces the output in the form of meeting summary. So if we restart our application and submit the request to this endpoint, we should get an error because we don't have any agent which produce this type of output. So when we submit the request to our agent, we will get the internal server error, and if we check the logs, Embabel is saying no agent found which produces string type of output. Yeah, so that was all from my end related to creating the REST API based agents using Embabel. So for this we have also created a detailed article which you can go through. Also the example that we have seen is uploaded on GitHub. You can check out the repo, enter your Google Gemini API key and try the same. So yeah, I hope you found it useful. Thank you.